different perspectives. Yeah, I really love the three different perspectives and how, you know, it was set in Canada and England and Nigeria. It was just like a really cool mix of perspectives and locations. But my question was kind of more just because before you joined the session, we were talking around how you could view some of the stories as spirituality, and you could also view them from a mental health perspective. And I was saying the way that I read the book was in terms of spirituality. And it was only when we just joined the Zoom meeting and people were talking about how the kin was potentially displaying like multiple personality disorder. And I guess I really hadn't read it that way. So I was, that was really interesting to me. But in terms of the twins, because they also had Our Lady and they had other visions that they were seeing. So I guess my question was around, if we are looking at it from a mental health perspective, like how would that kind of be diagnosed? And if you didn't write it that way, then maybe just hearing more about that would be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't write it that way. I imagine that some people could interpret it that way, and I'm just really interested in that space, allowing that, because, you know, after you watch a movie that's like trippy, like Inception, and you're talking about it with your friends and you all have theories, I love that. But I specifically refrained from what's the word, diagnosing, because I don't know. I just don't know. I also am very interested in kind of, I don't know how to word this, but I was listening to a podcast or watching a TED Talk, something of that genre, about how auditory and visual hallucinations are very much informed by culture. And the speaker was given an example of how in like the global north, like the US, Canada, parts of Europe, a lot of the auditory and visual hallucinations are incredibly violent, and people who experience them are hearing. I should be able to cite this source. So after this, I'm going to research wherever I found this. The people who experience them within this cultural context are being told to do violent things, or, you know, whereas the same sort of experience in other parts of the world, and the speaker used South Asia, it's more mischievous and like sex mischief and silliness, and sometimes like healing or guidance, that sort of shamanic idea. And I liked that because I don't really know anything. But I wanted to write a character, who is this person? Like, I wanted to write what she might be experiencing and how that might be coming across to people who aren't her.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I think we were kind of touching on that before about how the visions she was seeing were actually super helpful to her. And it wasn't like you were saying, you know, in the global north where it might be someone telling them to do something violent. It wasn't that at all. It actually progressed the story along, and it was like a helpful invisible friend.
Yeah. I also really like the idea for Tai of an imaginary friend. Like, I never had imaginary friends. I just would like play characters to myself. But I like the idea of like an adult having a genuine friend that no one else can see, and it's not spooky, because in movies it's always spooky, and ideally, you know, we don't want to have to live with that. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
I'm just going on a side note. I'm just saying, I love the fact that you're rocking pink, you know, obviously myself and Maggie got the memo. So just a side note, like, yes, yay to pink, man. Pink to make the boys or the girls wink as they So, but anyway, back to more seriousness. I mean, we've got so many questions. I want to throw off to Emma. Emma, you know, I love to put you on the spot about telling you in advance, so please forgive me. But did you have a question?
Yeah, is my audio okay, or should I type?
You are doing amazing. Please go for it.
Cool. Hello, really nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
really enjoyed the fact that the book was just kind of giving voice to these three very powerful, strong women, and hearing from their perspective. And there obviously were like important men in their life, but we didn't kind of really see anything from their perspective. And I just wondered if you could tell us a bit more about the kind of decision behind going with that narrative and kind of sidelining some of the men.
Yes, I don't know if this is embarrassing, but I feel like I was very indulgent writing this, and I really just wrote what I wanted to write and what I was interested in researching. And I just wasn't that interested in the men. Not that I was very, very invested in Banji, but I in retrospect, I definitely used most of the men as tools. So they were just the two copy and paste bad men. I considered like giving their stories nuance, and it made me angry. I was thinking I could give them background and humanize them. I was like, I think that's okay. They can just be bad men. But I really was invested in Banji, and he was a tool. So was Bobby was also a tool. But Timmy, I adored, and he was like the one male character and really quite genderqueer, but the one assigned male at birth character that I wanted to, elevate to the same level as the three main characters. But yes, it was just an instinctive beginner's luck decision. But I'm very aware that they're just like copy and paste characters.
No, not at all. And I think I completely also am with you on Timmy being my favourite kind of male character in the book. And I think when we kind of left him after the attempted suicide and then didn't rejoin him till much later in the book, I thought that was just a really interesting kind of arc, and I was like, really happy to see his name come back again and find out more about him.
Yeah, I love Timmy. That was his pain was particularly difficult to write, and took a very long time to write because I didn't want to, but he was much less of a tool. Like I really wanted him to stand alone. But I think pretty much all the other characters maybe. Oh, Wolfie, I love Wolfie. I also took a long time to write his character. And so that's the thing. I knew that I wanted, if there were going to be bad men, no asterisks, I wanted there to be good men, no asterisks. So Wolfie was really a good guy. And so is Farouk, like just genuinely just trying to be better than the patriarchy.
Definitely. I mean, Emma, did you have anything else to add to this part? I agree.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Honestly, when you wrote Onion Bros, you wrote two great Onion Bro men. So, like, when he saw her and when he saw Taye in France, was it Paris or France, wherever they was, and then that New Year's, and he touched her scar, and he thought, I was like, oh, that was so beautifully written. So,
thank you.
Honestly, man, we live in a patriarchal society that created things like Lara Croft, man. So let's write a book about anything but the man them, innit? So good on you, babes. And I just wondered, while we are on that sort of gender queer thing, one of the things I thought was quite interesting was when Taye had that one night stand. Was it with Banker? Near the end, the teaching assistant. And when she was trying to just put her in categories, are you a soft butch? Are you this? Are you more fair than that? And I just started thinking, like, for someone like me who's just boring cis girl who only likes men with issues, do you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, I sometimes are very mindful about how I categorize people from the LGBTQ plus community, but then it's very interesting to see how they categorize themselves within the community as well. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that, really.
Yeah, I'm queer, and it's real. It's very much like how femme, high femme,
Are
stud.
you Taye? Are you Taye?
No, very much not.
Are you Taye? Like,
no, if I'm any of the characters, No, not definitely not Ty. She's bold and she's not ashamed. I have a lot of shame. um, but
Why do you have shame? I was reading something there about like shame files. Like why do we carry, especially as Black women, and if you're a Black woman, now you've in inverted commas deviated from the path of being someone's wife and an auntie and for 3 kids. Now you should be shaming yourself for what? Like you,
yeah.
I mean, obviously that's not my story, but because you,
No, but shame is an amazing thing. It's like
yeah,
so powerful. Yeah, I could go on about shame forever, but do you ever read Brene Brown? No.
reading the From Vulnerability to Shame that she just done with Tara Burke.
Yeah.
Mm.
So her first few books were very much about like shame and resilience and courage and like how to be like live a wholehearted life. But yeah, just like everyone has such intense shame roots. Well, not everyone, but yeah, I mean, one day we'll be free from shame. I don't know. Religion, racial trauma. I don't know. Not being perfect.
Lord, and you're Nigerian, you have to be perfect. You know what they say when you like, there's like this joke they have in the Nigerian culture, when your parents name you, they even name you doctor, engineer, or failure. So it's really like, you know, like Fran, like trust me, ones. And it's about trying to, if you've been growing up with that, it's about trying to take off all those labels or be because you didn't subscribe to the traditional stereotype of a Nigerian woman. Would you say that? I mean, I'm just talking my own perspective. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Wait, what was the question?
So I don't know. I kind of went around that, but I'll give you a break from me rambling. So let me,
okay, I will answer the first one though, which was like categorizing. That just exists. I think it's a very, I don't want to say human, I think it's a very colonial practice and mentality that we have. We need to categorize so we can tag and evaluate. I don't know why it's like that, but it is. And I wanted to write a character that was just gay, like just really wasn't an issue. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Becky?
Yeah, I don't know if this is really a question. I guess it's kind of building on what you said. You kind of just wrote what you were interested in and wanted to research about. And Liz spoke about this just kind of before. So twins, I've learned today, is actually a really big thing in Nigeria, and I didn't realize it was so kind of common. I think Liz said 1 in 25 children are actually twins, and yeah, I was interested to see kind of why you thought you go towards.
It's not 1 in 25 women, people are twins. It's 1 in 25 women tend to have twins.
So, sorry, 1 in 25 women tend to have twins. Sorry.
Yeah, Nigerian
women. Yeah, I was really interested in to know kind of what made you, why twins and why you wanted to kind of go down that route, because I loved reading about the kind of their connection and the relationship about them.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sure Liz can tell you twins. I don't know the excuse me, actual statistic, but the most twins per capita exist in Yoruba land. I don't know capita, but like there's a place in Nigeria and it's mostly Yoruba people and there's just twins everywhere. And they think it has something to do with their diet and they eat a lot of yams. But I just grew up with a lot of twins in my life, friends, cousins, that sort of thing. And a lot of Nigerian writers have written about twins and I love to read about it. And I was really interested as well in like the idea of betrayal, right? There's nothing more painful than self-betrayal. But because we don't really, I don't know, I've been thinking about this a lot. Like I don't always perceive myself as a real separate entity because, we can see other people, but we can't really see ourselves. And so the idea of like treating myself as a person who deserves to drink water and maybe have fresh air the way I would my pets. And anyway, so yeah, considering myself as a person, there's no one closer to me, but then actually having a separate person and like twins. So I really wanted to go right down to like the cellular level. So like monozygotic twins or like one zygote, which is different than like, you know, they're just two eggs fertilized at the same time. It's like you were one person. I know technically it's not one person, but it blows my mind. It blows my mind. So I was really interested to see or to explore what would happen where there's betrayal or perceived betrayal, right? With that closest possible person to you. That's why. But also it's just twins are freaky. It's interesting. I always ask twins, like it's such an embarrassing and cliche question because, you know, if siblings and people that grow up together, you don't know any different. But I'm always like, how does it feel? Like, do you feel like a whole person? Or I hope none of you are twins.
No, I have brothers and cousins and, you know, the usual. I mean, do you have any twins in your family?
No. My baby, she's not a baby, she's only a couple years younger than me, but she was a twin, and her sibling died in childhood. But no, I have 2 older brothers, but I do look exactly like my mother, like spitting image. And she didn't raise me, but we have very similar interests and hobbies and like crafts. So that's always an interesting thing to be like, I'm really not original.
It's always good to have like a home base, isn't it? Somewhere, a home religion. I think it's interesting, if you're not to get too personal, it's that your mum didn't raise you. Because I think one of the things that came up from the book is that all these women in these books, they've never had that strong relationship with their mother. Like Kimberly, she never had it. The twins never had it because of mum's situation. And do you know what I'm saying? So is that something that kind of seeped into your writing because maybe of your own personal experience? I don't want you to get too personal if you don't feel comfortable.
No, absolutely. And I, like I want to continue to write and I want to continue to write professionally. So it is something I have to interrogate. But I was compiling a few short stories like in 2018 or 19, because I was like, maybe I can submit this to a publisher as a collection of shorts. And so I was reading through and some of the same themes kept coming up and I realized I had to go to therapy. So as much as this is not, it's like completely fiction, there are some themes like body image issues and, survivorhood. Like there's just some things that came up. And in a similar way as like, I'm not interested in writing men and I don't really know men that well in terms of like what fathers do. This sounds all very emotional and sad. It's not, but like what fathers are like, what like male parental figures are like for a lifetime. I don't know that. And it's not really something, I mean, I can research it and I am for my next work, but because this book took so long and because it was so unplanned and kind of happening without an outline, I was drawing a lot from things I knew. So I only know men and fathers. I know brothers. I know like friends very much. And I know women raising, I know aunties raising nieces and nephews and grandparents taken in family. Like I know that very well. So in terms of the family dynamics, I was writing from a place of knowing and I'm trying to do that less, but I think it's impossible. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Kathy?
Hey, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming. I was wondering, when you wrote it, did you write each character like separately, or had you already chosen like which order you were putting things in? Because it all flows so nicely. I wasn't sure if you kind of written it with a plan sort of, or if it just kind of wrote itself. I don't know.
Thank you. No plan. I just wrote the characters individually, and then when I heard back from the folks at Arsenal Pulp, the publisher, I got to work with an amazing editor, and she made it make sense. So editing, it really comes down to editing. Yeah. So I had to rearrange a lot of things and I make, retrospectively or retroactively make intentional decisions. So changing tenses, deciding who was going to speak in first person. And that was all my editor. Yeah. Well, she didn't write it, but she told me to. So.
And as a kind of follow-up question, because the twins talk in different persons, one of them's in first and one of them's in third, is that to help kind of distinguish between them, or why are they written differently? That's a really aggressive question, sorry.
No, it's not at all. I wanted, so Kainde is a character who, you know, sort of had her agency taken from her at such a young age. And I wanted to write in first person, you know, somebody trying to have control. So that made sense. And so there was a shift with Ekwuyasi as well. But with Taye, that character was really like a permeable membrane in a way, which was some of her main personal issues with relationships and friendships, is she didn't have clear boundaries of like where she was and who she was from her sister. So it made sense to have like an omniscient narrator. But in the moments, like through her letters, there was some agency there. Yeah, that was why I did that. And before I had initially written, Kainde was always first person, but Taye was going back and forth. So like I would write like in the past and in the present, but then change that with feedback from the editor. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want some water, Francesca? Because you've been going at you, man. We don't want you to dehydrate on screen. One thing I wanted to say as well is that obviously growing up in South London, and you know, it's quite funny that you put about there's so many Nigerians in London or in, you know, Peckham, because Peckham is known as Little Lagos. Like if you're Nigerian, you've got to touch road. Like my first home in England was in Peckham. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So that's the birthplace. I just thought I don't know if you've been to like Peckham or you've been to London, but your research was amazing. Like even when you're talking about Asylum Road, I'm like, man, do you know about Asylum Road in Peckham and how you describe some of the houses? I'm like, mate, like I had situations in some of those houses, you know what I mean? So I was just like, so your research about London was very impeccable, particularly from that Nigerian lens as someone who grew up in that sort of area. Have you been to London and how did you do your research?
Yeah, I have family there. I think every Nigerian has family. But I also did a lot of library research, as they say. When I was in grad school, it was between library research and field research. And I was researching, content warning, I was researching labor trafficking in the the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, so the UAE and Qatar and Saudi Arabia. And I wasn't allowed to go. The ethics board was like, you're not going to research human trafficking. Anyways, I had to do a library research. And so I considered like 75% of the research on London library research, because I haven't been there since 2013. Yeah, since 2013. It's a long time now. Yeah, lots of research, lots of talking to family there and friends there, and yeah.
When you come back again, like you know, you've got a few book club people who would love to meet you in person.
Thank you.
Coming through. Speaking of London, you know, we are international. You've got people in Germany, you've got people in Australia that are waking up at like 4 a.m. So
wow.
Debbie, this is your time. Drum roll.
Although I slept in today and came in late, so damn it. How lovely to see you though.
It's nice to meet you.
Can I ask a question? But I don't know if someone's already asked you about this, because I was a little late into your time. So if someone's asked you about this, just stop me. But I was curious about the I'm forgetting the word. Is it Obanji? So this idea that she, you know, has come back and causes misery for everyone, that kind of thing. The story very much treats it as if this is true, that, you know, but her kin talking to her also, you know, you know, you think, well, is this actually like some kind of mental illness, etc. I'm just really interested in the way you treated that, and the decision to write it as something that is accurate. Like, you know, how did you sort of handle that? What was your process of thinking about how you wrote that?
Thank you so much for asking that. So the Agbanje is like this idea or this belief in evil cosmology. Like it's a very similar to Ifa, Yoruba traditional belief, like it's part of the system, a traditional system of not necessarily worship, but of understanding a spiritual world. And so my account of this is fiction, because there are, I don't know the right word, because, you know, like they're documented belief systems that you can read about what is believed about the Ogbanje, about how they operate, about what you have to do if you believe that you're being plagued by an Ogbanje. And I wanted to write a completely fictionalized version of that, just because that's like, you know, that's knowledge that isn't necessarily to be, what's the word, capitalized upon, you know, I don't know. But yes, I did want to write it as factual because I wanted to write it from the perspective of Kambirinachi. And so that first line is, if she were to tell it, this is how she would tell it, as though it's real, you know, and you have a choice as a reader to believe her or to interpret it. Yeah. And so the things about the king.
Not that it has to make sense to me, but it's interesting.
Yeah, no, but there's so much you can read. There's so much fiction about Ogbanje. Like Ben Okri has a series of books. I think it's a trilogy called Famished Road, and the main character is an Ogbanje. And more recently, Akwaeke Emezie, they have a book. Actually, their first novel is, I believe it's technically autofiction, because this is who they believe they are, an Ogbanje. So they write as an Ogbanje. And they're in the States, they're quite famous. But there's a lot of fiction about like straddling that line between like the material and the spiritual. Yeah, I was just interested to, you know, to take my, you know, what's it called? Put my own spin on it. Yeah.
It's so complicated, African spirituality, because growing up in a Nigerian household, you know, like you kind of said in the book about anytime someone says like a curse to you, you're like, you know, the devil's a liar.
Yes.
Like, do you know what I'm saying? You turn to sender. Like I'm still in on all that, but I know there's no monsters underneath the bed, but I'm forbid, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Holy Ghost fire. So it's this weird cognitive dissonance. Like, I know, but I'm Nigerian at the end of the day. Like, I have a friend that's an atheist, and she's like, "Oh, why do you still go to church?" Like, and I don't go to church that often. I need to go more. But I'm like, look, just in case this Jesus thing is real, yeah, and I'm Nigerian, I need to just let them know at the pearly gates that they saw me at church a few times. Do you know what I'm saying? But I say that, but then I'm having sex without marriage, I'm drinking out here. I'm living my best life, but I'm just a confused human being. But it's just when you've had that Nigerian culture on you, you can't fully let it go. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's that's kind of the point in many ways, because similarly, I grew up very Catholic. My grandfather would travel to see apparitions. My grandparents raised me, and he would travel to see apparitions of Mary, and he was going to be a priest, but he wasn't. And my maternal, like my biological mother, is an Ifa priestess. So if you've heard about
wow.
like, yeah, and but she's also Anglican. it's just all together a mess, and that's fine. You know, we're just trying.
It's a bit like the Brazilian religion. A lot of people, like in Salvador, northern Brazil, like because the slaves weren't allowed to, enslaved people, shall I say, weren't allowed to practice their own African spirituality. They pretended to the owners that they were practicing Catholicism. But then what's happened is over the hundreds of years, it's all got really into
Exactly.
Santeria, is it? I think it's now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it is that. So even them, 100 years ago, still struggled with trying to figure out what are we going with, really.
But I think I'm just so fascinated by like humanity and our minds, because I'm not saying we invented God, you know, but we kind of have throughout history in different religions and different languages at different times invented many different versions of God. Why? You know, like we are just, why are we doing this? But there's something in us that's looking. And I think that's enough, just like acknowledging that like we need guidance. And so we're like making better versions of ourselves to guide us. And whatever that looks like, I mean, we're not killing each other for it, but that's the trouble. We always kind of
we are, that's the problem.
We are. For it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maggie?
That was a ramble. I apologize.
No, religion, honestly, like stay on in it after. No, Mags, did you have anything to add?
Hello, thanks for being here. This is great. I would just like to ask about the food and how you incorporated it. Like, do you cook, and is that like being inspired, or like why did you want to include it? I thought it was brilliant. Like, I think in some books, maybe if I'm just reading it, I might skip over that. But I was saying before you joined, I partially listened to the audiobook, and it was just like really brilliant experience to like hear somebody explain it all in this really nice way. And I was like, ooh, this all sounds great. But yeah, just wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love everything about food forever. And I have since I was small. I used to actually, speaking of the UK, I used to watch Jamie Oliver's Naked Chef. I loved him so much. I mean, he's fine now, but then before he was like a TV person, he was just cooking for his friends in his apartment. And I would watch that as a kid, I think I was like 13 or so, just so enamored. Oh, and Nigella Lawson, it's because I was in love with her. But I would just watch her. But just, yeah, a lot of food TV and food books. And, you know, I come from a Nigerian household. Cooking is a huge, huge part of every day. And so the choice to do it wasn't intentional. I didn't realize I was doing it so like explicitly because I just wanted to write about people kind of going about their daily lives and the lives that I've witnessed, the life I know. Like food is a essential part, even when it's like sort of a contentious thing like it was for K&D. Like even then, just food everywhere. I'm grateful there's food everywhere. I'm grateful it's not like it hasn't been scarcity with food. But yeah, I wanted to ground the characters in reality and like really in the senses. So you have to use the washroom. A lot of people bleed. People have sex. People eat. People are looking for God. Are trying to make meaning. Yeah, and I suppose my my obsession with food kind of came through.
Great obsession to have, and it's just unfortunate because unlike say sex and other ones, I feel like food, I mean they've all been there's also political agenda to everything, but I think food has kind of lost that. People see it in relation to weight and, you know, other things, and it's so frustrating. But for me, I just think growing up in a Nigerian household like yourself, food was like the it was like kind of like the glue that bonded us together. Like, I know I'm one of 5, I've got my mum and dad, like there's 7 of us, and no matter where we are in London or where we are in the house, come food time, we need to sit down and figure stuff out. And it really kind of resonated with me. For those who've watched I May Destroy You, I think it came from the US.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm saving it.
Okay, but you would love it.
Ready.
I'm not going to tell you about the thing, but it's amazing. But there's just like a couple of scenes there when they don't say anything, but they prepare food. So at really heightened emotional point, it's like, you know what, where's the jollof rice? And that to me says that, you know, food speaks a lot. And even with me, like when my friends come over, or, you know, I go to certain other, most of my friends' houses who are of color, like food's on the table. And it's not because I'm coming to a house expecting, you know, a 4-course meal, but it's just that part of that culture of like, I'm welcoming you into my home. This is my labor of love to you. And having that thing that is food kind of bonds us. So I think it's so important. And I think we need to, it's very difficult, but take it away from scales and, you know, attractiveness and stuff, and see it as a glue that can bond relationships. And
Yeah.
I think it's not a feminist movement perspective, but it is that, you know, women in the kitchen. But growing up, man, being in the kitchen is where the gossip was, you know, like,
Yes, I love
you
being in
find
the
out the
kitchen.
tea about the uncle, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the auntie and who's doing something. So women, best place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I learned about feminism in my undergrad when I was like 17, 18, and they kept using the cooking part as like, you know, like domestication. And I'm a feminist, I love it. But I was just like, but cooking is cool though. Like we love it, right? Like we're just saying we don't like it because of domesticity but we love to cook, right? So lots of people don't, but I do. And I'm really interested to see this now. I need to show you. I'm a huge fan of Michaela Cole. Michaela Cole?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I don't know why I'm such a huge fan, but I'm excited to see how food shows up there. Some friends of mine have been organizing, you know, just police being police, and I can't. I'm a permanent resident. I can't afford to be arrested. No one really can, but I'm just like, you know, I'd like to not be in a precarious situation before I'm arrested. But folks are coming over, and it's so stressful and sad and upsetting to, like, you know, friends being arrested for protesting. But all I can do is have food. Like all I can do is be like, oh yeah, well, we have juice and here's some cashews, and who's hungry? Because that just feels like, you know, the care I can offer during like really dodgy times. And I think in this book as well, even when Tai wasn't sure how to talk to Kehinde and was nervous, she was like, we'll cook. We'll just cook. I'm so rambly. It's because I went on a float and I'm feeling very relaxed after.
Honestly, this float, man, it is sounding so. Anyway,
I highly recommend, unless you're claustrophobic. In that case, don't do it. But otherwise, I highly recommend.
I would want to do it. There's one in the UK. It's called Float Works. They have a few ones in Brixton and in London. So definitely. Sophie, to the only one that hasn't asked the question, obviously you don't take up too much of your time, Fran. Sophie and Steph, either can go first. Sophie, you go first. Yeah.
Hi, Francesca. I wanted to say about the cooking, as you were discussing it, that it's actually a very powerful place to be in the kitchen, because you're feeding people, you're feeding them, you're cooking for them, you're feeding them what you're cooking. And I think it's communication skills. So we're communicating with people. I mean, my parents are from the Caribbean, and we don't really show emotions. We don't talk about emotions and stuff, you know, we don't talk about love, but we cook for each other and we sit together and we have a meal. And I think that's how we express our love in so many ways. And sometimes we don't need to go into big debates and, you know, talk about how all of that. Sit down together, have a meal. It's quite mundane, but it also means a lot who you share your food with and who you share your table with. So that's my view as well. And I think the conflict resolution they had amongst them was quite good as well, because it was not too over dramatic. It was kind of how it would happen in a real family, you know, after so many time has passed. So the intensity of your feelings are gone, but you still have the resentment, but you're not going to scream and cry, but you're just going to, you know, go through it as the twins have gone through it, which I thought was quite good as well. My question was, before you came in, I felt I liked your book, but I felt that the mother story could have been a standalone story, actually. And is that something that went through your mind before the editing, or is that something that you struggled a bit with in terms of your editor coming into it and kind of incorporating the stories, and which stories were more prominent than another one?
So because of my next book, I have to write differently, be more disciplined. But because of the process of this book, it was a bit aimless. So I was writing them individually, but saying I sent it to the publisher as one book. And I agree, it could have been a standalone, it'd be a different book though.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I think my editor did, like, we tried to make it as coherent as possible, considering how vastly different they were, even in terms of genre, right? I don't have a proper answer to the question.
That's okay. No, I was just wondering because, I mean, those are 3 different stories intertwined in a book. And the twins, they have that symbiotic link anyway. And the mother's a bit more remote from that. She's their mother, but she doesn't have that closeness that they shared. That's kind of why I asked, that's all.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I feel, so this is why I keep saying I feel like I have had beginner's luck, because I wasn't thinking about rules or would work or not. And now I have to. I have to be more disciplined and have a plan versus just writing. Yeah.
No, but it worked well. It worked out well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have the questions there?
I mean, if you need to go, like, it's totally fine, because people kind of covered what I was going to say anyway, so.
No, you didn't have any other questions, no? Okay, cool. No worries there. I mean, I've always got things to say, but one of the things I wanted to say is, do you think you could forgive Taye? Could you forgive Taye?
Yes, because I don't think she did anything wrong. I think she was a child and made a mistake, but I fully empathize with Kandi's pain. Yeah, but I'm curious. I would like to know what Steph wanted to ask. Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I was gonna kind of speak about mental health and how you portrayed it in the book. So thanks for kind of adding like some more kind of context to that. And I think kind of sharing it from people's, like, the characters' perspectives really kind of gave them agency and like validation. And I feel like sometimes in mental health it can be like, oh, you know, they're misreading things, they're interpreting the world wrong, whereas it's actually they're interpreting the world like through their own experiences, and it's totally valid. So I just really like that about the way you wrote.
Thank you. Liz, can I ask you, could you forgive Taye?
Oh, sorry. I'm the convener. I don't answer questions. Oh, sorry. Like, you actually put me on the spot. It's just how it feels for all these authors. Lord God, and you guys, yikes. Yeah, I think I could always forgive, but I feel like forgiveness is one thing, resentment is something else. I think sometimes you can struggle with that. And I think for myself as well, I have twin brothers, and I know, like, they will die for each other. I don't feel they'll die for me, man. They'll be like, take it, Liz, see you in the next life. The way they are for the two, like the way those two ride for each other. Do you know what I mean? The way those two ride for each other, I don't know, like, but then again, from a very, what's the word, evolutionary point of view in it, it's fight or flight. It's fight, flight, or freeze, and she froze. Do you know what I'm saying? And that, like, she was a child and she froze. Absolutely. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think I could forgive, but there'll always be that resentment. I'm thinking, if that's happened to you, and the one person in this life that's meant to be with you to the end was with you when you were experiencing this, but didn't show up for you, I think it'll be very hard for you to, do you know what I'm saying? I understand. Yeah. I understand it, but again, I'm seeing it from a lens of having twin brothers and looking from the outside of how their bond is so strong, and they're not identical, they're non-identical. So that's again, like, I know I've had you on for so long. Jane's actually turned up. Jane, I know obviously you're on holiday, but I know you really found this book really emotional because you messaged me to tell me. I know Fran is here. Did you have any questions for her before she departs?
No, just to say I'm really sorry that I'm late. I absolutely loved the book. I loved reading about the relationship between the twins and their mother especially. Yeah, it was really lovely. I'm sorry I missed the chat, but I'm going to make sure I watch the recording that I missed.
No, thank you for making the effort to come anyway. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was stuck on the beach waiting for my mother to collect me, so that was the reason.
It's a hard life, man, being on beaches and waiting for chauffeurs, man. Honestly, how do you survive, Jane? Lord. But guys, before I let Fran go, has anybody got any other last questions they wanted to ask her? Because we don't want to let you go, really. I don't want to let you go. That's but I want to see if I can get someone else to keep you here. Everyone ask their questions.
Go. Oh, I have the quick question. Just because with Taye and Kehinde and the characters that you've built, how did you feel about having to let them go once you finished writing the book?
So sad. And I've been writing I'm trying to very slowly though. It's been slow so far, writing a different character, and Taye just keeps popping up. And I think it's because I spent the most time with Taye because I live in Halifax. So when I was writing scenes in Halifax, I was putting myself in those locations. And I also just have a lot of empathy for that kind of like hungry person. So yeah, I just need to write a different character. And Cambion actually, I knew what was happening with her the whole time, and so it was different. But with Taye and Candy, I didn't know. So yeah, I kind of missed them, but there's other characters. I hope.
I kind of missed them too. I love the characters. I felt like over the pages, you just get to know them so well that they kind of become all-consuming. You get the Taye kind of all-consuming personality aspect where they're so engaging that you finish and you're like, oh, I want to carry on reading. But yeah, no, it's. I loved it, but thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is literally a dream come true. So if you have a book, you should write it because it feels great.
I think there's like a quote, something about like, the biggest pain in someone's life is that unwritten book or something, because we all have a book within us, but
write it. Yeah. I promise it's worth it. I'm so grateful. Like, you're across the ocean and you read this thing from my head and my heart, and it makes me really happy. I'm really grateful. And next time I'm not going to do an event after it floats because I'm just too rambly.
You're not rambly at all, man. Dropping his knowledge, and just thank you so much. We're looking forward to the next book. I feel like you keep on saying it was beginner's luck, but I think it's a talent and a gift for you, for the stories you shared with us. So I think you don't need to see it as a beginner's luck. I think it'll be a continuous evolution of your talent. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah, God's grace. Like, I don't know any other religious language, but if I did, I would share them. Just like peace out, I guess that's another one, isn't it? But thank you so much. I will continue to stalk you online and make sure he does as well. And just like, yeah, Godspeed, as they say.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And yeah, speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Take care. Bye. Oh, lovely.